Welcome to this demonstration on preferences in Notes as they relate to the calendar. Preferences hold most of the settings and features for Mail and Calendar. It's a good idea to take some time to review your preferences because there are a lot of settings that can make using Mail and Calendar easier and even save you some time. If you notice any settings under Preferences that are grayed out, it's probably because there's a policy enabled that prevents you from accessing it. The easiest way to access preferences is right from your Mail or Calendar view by going to More and then Preferences. The first tab you see when you open Preferences is the Mail tab, and under that is Basics. You'll see an Owner field. Your name should always appear in the Owner field. This field determines who owns the mail file. There are a number of things that can go wrong if the Owner field does not contain your name, so I won't go into all of them. But one of the main things is if you open a meeting and you no longer have owner options, it'd be a good idea to check this field and make sure it has your current updated name. On the Basics tab, you'll also find spell check settings. That's pretty self-explanatory. You'll also find a setting that will warn you if you try to send an email out without a subject. And here's a screenshot of what will happen if you leave the subject field blank. Next, we'll move to the Calendar and To-Do, Display, Entries tab. You'll see an entry type box here. This setting controls what type of calendar entry opens by default when you choose New from the calendar. Here you'll see the entry type is set to Meeting. So choosing New from the calendar will open a meeting because that's what's selected in Preferences. On the Calendar and To-Do Display Entries tab, there are also settings that control the duration of meetings, appointments, and anniversaries. So here you'll see the durations of meetings and appointments is set for 60 minutes. The duration of anniversaries is set for 10 years. So here you see the default for a new meeting is 1 hour, and that's because we set meetings in Preferences to be 60 minutes. You can also store conference call information on the Entries tab. Storing the information here will enable you to select it when creating a new meeting. So now, with the conference information stored in Preferences, you'll be able to add it quickly to new meetings by just simply checking the box. Now we move on to the Calendar and To-Do Display Views tab. This tab controls how your work view is displayed. You can choose which days are displayed in your work view and the start and end of your workday. The next setting we'll talk about is the one that says, Ask me before deleting calendar and to-do documents. This setting is important because calendar items cannot be retrieved from the trash folder like emails can. So with this setting enabled, Notes will warn you when you're about to delete a calendar entry. The next setting says Process Canceled Meetings Automatically. This setting controls how canceled meetings are processed, and you can have them processed automatically and be removed from the calendar when you receive a cancellation notice in your inbox. The last two settings on this tab talk about to-dos. You can display to-do entries, and you can also have overdue to-dos display on the current day. To-do items have due dates. So when you choose to display overdue to-dos on the current day, the to-dos will actually move to the next day. Now we move to the Calendar and To-Do Display Notices tab. Under the setting, display the following meeting notices in my inbox. You can control which meeting notices are displayed in the inbox. The default is all, but you can also choose to display only responses or no meeting notices at all. In the Update Notice Options section, there's a preference you can enable that will notify existing meeting participants whenever you add a new invitee or remove an invitee from an existing meeting. The next option says automatically process meeting updates and apply changes to meetings. This setting will allow the calendar to automatically be updated when changes to a meeting are received. Now we move on to the Calendar and To-Do Scheduling tab. This tab allows you to set your availability. If you make your availability accessible to others, they'll be able to see when you're available and schedule meetings accordingly. On this tab, there's also an option that says check for conflicts when adding calendar entries. If enabled, this setting will prompt you when you create a calendar entry that conflicts with something else on your calendar. Now we move on to Calendar and To-Do Alarms tab. Alarms are enabled on the Alarms tab by checking Display Alarm Notifications. After enabling alarm notifications, you must then choose which type of calendar items you want to receive notifications for. After making that choice, you can then specify how far in advance you'd like to be notified. Remember, you can always enable or modify a calendar item by clicking on the clock next to Notify Me when creating a new entry. Next, we move on to the Calendar and To-Do Auto Processing tab. On the Auto Processing tab, you can enable a setting that will have notes automatically accept or decline meeting invitations. Invitations can be accepted automatically based on who they're from. You can also choose to have notes accept based on your availability. On the Calendar and To-Do Colors tab, you can choose different background and text colors for calendar entries. Next, we move on to the Calendar and To-Do Rooms and Resources tab. On this tab, you can set up preferred sites and rooms to use when scheduling meetings with resources. To set up a preferred site, you would choose it from the directory. Please note you can only choose one site. You can also set up preferred rooms and resources. This is helpful if you normally use the same room or resource when setting up meetings. You can also set up preferred sites, rooms, and resources to use when scheduling meetings. With this setting enabled, you'll be prompted to add a site or room or resource to the preferred lists when you create a meeting and choose a room or resource. Now we move to the Access and Delegation, Access to Your Mail and Calendar tab. The Access and Delegation tab allows you to grant access to your calendar to other users. The access they have depends on what you select after selecting the Change Access button. You can choose to grant access to everyone or just the users you select from the directory using the drop-down button. You can grant access to just your calendar, to-dos, and contacts, or your mail, calendar, to-dos, and contacts. Please note, if you grant access to your mail, calendar, to-dos, and contacts, users will be able to see all calendar-related mail in the inbox. That's working as designed. After choosing what users have access to, you can also choose how much access is granted. Users can have read-only access, or you can grant permission for users to read, create, edit, and delete. Automatic forwarding allows you to have meeting invitations forwarded to users you specify. These specified users would be able to modify meetings on your behalf or accept invitations for which you're an invitee. Here we have the Access and Delegation Access to Your Schedule tab. When users schedule a meeting with you, this tab determines how much of your schedule they see. You can not only specify who sees your schedule information, but how much information they see. The default is usually set for everyone. When you grant access to your schedule, users will be able to see your availability on the Find Available Times tab of a new meeting. In this screenshot, green means the user is available. This is the Access and Delegation Shortcut to Others Mail tab. Once someone has granted you access to their mail file, you can add a shortcut to it. The shortcut will appear on the left side of Notes under your mail folders. So as we noted in the beginning, you can access preferences by going to More and then Preferences. But you can also access preferences from the File menu. Accessing preferences here gives you another option, Regional Settings. Under Regional Settings, you can specify which day your calendar view starts on. You can also specify which day the date picker starts on. You can also choose to display an additional time zone in your calendar. In the screenshot to the right, you can see how it's displayed next to your current time zone. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned some interesting features about calendar preferences.